गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We just completed, I don't know how many classes, the Kena Upanishad, and before we enter into our next one of the most wonderful Upanishads, every Upanishad is wonderful, no doubt. Uh, we began this Kena. Kena is a question, so you can also say it is a questionable Upanishad in that sense that everyone is always asking the children, what is this for, what is that for. Once when I went to Badrinath and Varanasi, one girl, few kids were there, Sita, her brother, one of the Swamis who is here in presently, but he was brahmachari that time. He was also there with me, and Sain and others. And when we reached Gangotri, throughout the journey, because they had never traveled so comfortably, and so they were not worried about how to get anywhere, because I was taking responsibility for that. So everything was so new for them. And Swamiji, what is this? Swamiji, what is that? Swamiji, what? How does this tea taste? How, Swamiji, how is this? Swamiji, what is this tree called? Swamiji, what is this river called? So just like I became a questionable personality because everyone is asking questions. So here the student is also asking a question, and questions must be asked. Questions must be asked not about uh, not about the world, but about the status of the world. From where has it come? What is its reality? What is it standing on? Is it real or unreal? And when we ask these questions, then automatically we will be qualified like the student in the Kena Upanishad who became qualified because he was inquiring, he was questioning his experiences, he was questioning his conclusions of life. And those questions, when we live at a ignorant level, search is always in ignorance only. In reality there is no search. So search is always in ignorance because it's a searchless search. Imagine a wave is searching for water, it's a searchless search. Similarly, we are searching for the reality. It's a searchless search, we are already that, but we don't know it. And because we don't know it, we employ various faculties, speech, senses, mind, intellect, and therefore this Upanishad, which is part of the Sama Veda and consists of 4 chapters, it began with the opening Shanti mantra, so that all our faculties become integrated, synchronized, enlivened with strength, with purity, with clarity, with inspiration, so that they are absolutely without any dross, without any laziness, without any tamas, inertia, available for this fantastic inquiry that is going to begin with this question. And therefore, Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshu Shrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Vani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryan Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastva Nirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishadsu Dharmaha Te Mai Santu Te Mai Santu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And it told here that may my limbs, speech, pranas, pranas means the vital airs, the eyes, the ears, the strength of all my senses grow vigorously. Everything is the Brahman of the Upanishads. May I never deny the Brahman. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryan Mama Brahma Nirakarot. May I do not say that it is not there. Reality is. Reality status is existence ever and ever and ever. And on the other hand, having made this positive, the first excuse me, kya ho gaya? See, our problem is, we human beings, we seekers, our issue is that we want all great things. We want success, we want money, we want wealth, we want the goodies of life, we want the knowledge, we want to be peaceful, we want to be at one with the Lord or the divine, but we are not ready to do the hard yaka. We are not ready to put in the hard work. We are not ready to be disciplined in our life. We are not ready to discipline our mind and senses. Then how will we? Just wishing is not going to take us there. Then you are leaving it for chance. And in this creation, there is nothing by chance. Everything is in its place as ordained. So therefore, in the first few first two lines, he said that may I never deny the reality, because there are many people in the society who deny the reality. They deny God. They are agnostic. What reality? What this? What that? They don't believe there is anything called Upanishad. They don't believe in anything called reality. They don't need. They are only Nidra Maitunam Ahar. That's it. Sleep, drink, enjoy, and that's their life. Never ever making themselves available. One boy was to the higher. One boy was there about 6-7 years ago. He came to me, fully tattooed from top to bottom. Everything from here onwards, here also, behind the ears also, every part of his body was tattooed. And someone, one very good friend of mine, he is a hypnotist. He was working for TED Cameras as a general manager, but then when he retired, before retirement, he changed his profession and he was taking meditation courses and everything, but he needed some income, so he did the course, certificate course, diploma course, and eventually became a hypnotherapy. And this boy had been to him, and after quite a few sessions, he said, "Why don't you go and meet our Swamiji?" So he told me, "Swamiji, he's a good boy, but when someone says but, you have to, all your antennas are up." So I said, "Okay, send him, no worries." So he came. First thing what we did, mom made the food and we fed him. And then I said, "Okay, now let's go for a walk." And It has been so through that therapy, as well as I think every week he used to come. Every week he used to attended few classes, not many, because he found just listening was not, it was okay, but he needed to ask questions, and that he could not do because we are following a particular pattern of topic, whatever text we are doing. So he used to come in the afternoons, and we used to go for a coffee to Gels Park, and 2 to 3 hours he'll take of mine. But today, you know what he is completely weaned off the drugs. He used to take injections. So he is completely weaned off the drugs. He helped his friends to come off the drugs. He got married. He has 2 children. He's bought a house. And now he is running courses. How, probably government, he's getting some government help also, because he's a living example who has overcome this drug problem and rehabilitated himself, and now he's empowering so many other kids, and he's only 35, not even that. See, before he was not accepting in anything that there is something great. Now he is so, I wouldn't say addicted, it is a wrong word, but he is so uh, much living in awareness of his self. If I show you his SMSs someday, you will be thrilled to read his conclusions of life, or what he is, and he is always talking in the present. Swami, this is going on right now. This is how I'm feeling, and this is how my disposition is. And I have to just, if his mind is going as he's talking, and if his thought is going somewhere wrong, wrong conclusions, I have to just correct it. That's all. But that same way, are we of this disposition where we are exposing ourselves to the satsang of Upanishad, and but somewhere deep inside there is a doubt. There is a doubt with reference to, is it possible that there is a reality? क्या ऐसा हो सकता है? Is it possible that there is something called formless, attributeless reality? Is there something which is pervading the whole creation? Is there something which is never born and never dies? Is there something which is inspiring all the senses? This doubt must not come. And remember, all search begins with blind faith first. Nobody has seen God, but they go to temples, they go to churches, they are ready to die to get the presents in heaven. The terrorists, they have never seen heaven, but they are ready to kill and plunder. Suicide. Why? We will get special presents in the heaven. Belief, blind faith. But here what we are, yes, initially we begin, but here this blind faith doesn't remain blind. We begin, and here remember, the student has already resolved all his doubts, all his samshay, all his, and therefore he says, so that I remain steadfast on this enquiry, may my limbs, may my senses, may my mind remain strong and vigorous and vibrant and focused. Because, and he has come to this conclusion that limbs cannot be, the senses cannot be powerful by themselves, mind cannot be powerful by themselves. He has already come to that conclusion. and he doesn't know what is that which invigorates these senses and mind, what is that which empowers this. So he doesn't know it because it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a shape. But okay, some people call it, in Star Wars they called it the Force. Here they call it Brahman, reality. So he says, may my mind ever have, may my mind never deny that reality. And after that, not only that, my mind should not deny the reality, the Brahman. May Brahman, that infinite intelligence, that infinite person, that infinite reality, may it not deny me, may it select me to express through, to help me to know it, to guide my senses and my mind and my intellect, so that they come and settle at settle with it. See, so may the Brahman never deny me, may there be no denial of the Brahman, may there be no spurning by the Brahman. Let all the virtues recited by the Upanishads repose in me, delighting in the Atman. May they in me repose. Meaning, क्या बोलता है वो? ते मई संतु, may they bless me, may they bless me. What? All the qualities, all the virtues, all the attributes, whatever is the nature of this reality, may it bless me. And how will it bless? By being me. That is may it bless me so that I come to know, come to be it, not only know it, but be it. With this prayer. But remember what it was? It was unknowable. It is something that he doesn't know, he cannot have a relationship with, and therefore here it has to be understood that here in this, because we are so used to interacting with something, even the God who has got no form, we give him a form according to our likes. Someone likes him as on the cross, someone likes him as Krishna, someone wants to relate with him as Shiva, someone wants to relate with him as Ganapati, and it's okay. But this student here in Kenopanishad, he has resolved all that. That he says that all those forms are no. I want to know what it is actually. Who is behind the forms of the gods also? And therefore, with this, he begins the first question, Kene Shitam. This is the question of this. What is that? He also has come to know that when a person dies, the senses don't work, the mind doesn't work, the breath doesn't work. So what is it that was there in the body and what is it that is absent in the body when a person is dead? It is not given in this Upanishad, but he must have assessed all that. And therefore he is asking this question, Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha, kena pranaha prathama praiti yuktaha, kene shitam vacham imam vadanti, chakshu shrotram kahu devo yunakti. So he asked the question that the body and mind are made up of matter. Everything other than that reality is inert, is matter, and matter is of two types. It expresses in two ways: formless and with form. When form is destroyed, it becomes energy. When energy is crystallized, it becomes form. And this is the nature of the everything that is other than the reality. So he is saying that the body and mind are made up of matter and are inert. What is that What is that? Right now he's thinking this way only at the body level. What is that external principle because of which the body and mind are enlivened, become activated? Having asked this question, this teacher, I'm not going to go into every detail of the topic, but just an overview. As we said, the teacher, in response to that question, see, when a student is ready, the teacher comes in life. So this student, when he's been searching, so the teacher has appeared, or he has approached the teacher, and the teacher replies, Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Mano Yad Vachoha Vacham Sau Pranasya Pranaha Chakshushas Chakshurati Muchidhiraha Pretyasmat Lokad Amruta Bhavanti. The teacher says, Shrotrasya Shrotram Chakshusha Chakshuhu. This Atman, this Brahman, this reality is the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind. And what is this? This Atma, this Brahman, Atma and Brahman is one, okay? This reality is that consciousness which is different from our ear, because a dead person also has a ear, but he is not able to hear it. He also has an eye, but he is not able to see it. He also has a tongue, but he cannot taste it. Air is plentifully available, but breathing is not taking place. So what is that? The question was, what is it that is inspiring all these faculties? So here the teacher said, it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, and so on. And it is that reality which is different, in what you call, in nature. It is different in nature from all these faculties that which it is invigorating, inspiring, because all these faculties, they are inert. Atma is not inert. Atma is consciousness. So that consciousness which is different from the ears, pervades the ear, different from the eyes, pervades the eyes, and so on. In other words, it is the ear of the ear, it is the cause of the that effect called ear. Therefore, it is the ear of the ear, it is the eye of the eye, it is the pranas of the prana, it is the mind of the mind. In this way, the teacher told him. Then in the next point, न तत्र चक्षुर्गच्छति न वाग्गच्छति नो मनः न विद्मः न विजानीमः यथैतद् अनुशिष्यात् अन्यदेव तद्विदितादथो अविदिताद् अधि इति शुश्रुम पूर्वेषां येनस्तद्विचक्षिरे. The eye does not go there, nor the speech, nor the mind. We do not know that. We do not know how to instruct one about it. The teacher washes his hands from all responsibility. And every teacher has mastered that, because he doesn't want to take the responsibility of the students. He doesn't want to take the responsibility of the understanding of the students. He will do his best to communicate, but in the end, the onus is on the student to develop the focus, develop the coolness, develop the faculties, develop the introvertedness, develop the single pointedness, relaxed single pointedness, not forced. Develop the integrity of all his faculties, the yin and yang, or the right brain and the left brain, and that teacher cannot make it happen for him. And therefore, when this teacher is answering this question, there are many students there. Everyone does not get, this particular student catches it. Others are just sitting dumb. So which one are we? Are we the one who catches it, or are we the one, that was very interesting information, tick, Swamiji spoke well. Upanishad spoke well. Teacher spoke well. Tick. Let's compare with another one now. Let's go to another teacher on another channel. If you do this, it will never click. You can listen to everywhere, to any teacher, but we must be available 100%. So here he says that we do not know, na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, na manaha. The senses cannot see, the effect can never come to know the cause. Just as the sense, the eyes which are illuminating the world, the inert cannot come to see the vision. The vision cannot illuminate the mind. So I'm just taking one example. So all the five senses, they cannot illuminate the mind. They cannot know the mind. If the senses try to look, see, hear, touch, feel, taste the mind, they will become silent. Similarly, the mind cannot come to know the intellect. Intellect cannot come to know the life. The life cannot come to know the consciousness, the infinite consciousness. So, rule is, effect can never come to know the cause. And therefore, the faculties, the senses and the mind, they cannot come to know that which is inspiring the senses and the mind and the intellect. And therefore he says, we don't know anya devatad viditad atha aviditad adhi. So we don't know how to communicate it and instruct one about it. This is how our teacher taught us. So this is how we have heard it. We are communicating it to you. Rest is all up to you. And in this way, then he comes to the next one. Yad vacha anabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate tadeva brahma tvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. What speech cannot reveal, but what reveals speech, know that as Brahman, and not this that people worship here. What people are worshipping? What are people worshipping? People are worshipping idols. People are worshipping photographs. People are worshipping Guru Maharaj, someone who with a body. And what is the reality? Reality is that which speech cannot reveal, eyes cannot reveal, all the senses cannot reveal, or the mind also cannot reveal. So that is the next few verses. So, but that which reveals the speech, that because of which you know there is speech taking place in this equipment. And you know speech is coming and speech is going. In the waking you are speaking grossly, in the dream you are speaking subtly, in deep sleep you are not speaking, and this is your conclusion, your observation of your life. So you must, that you, here, okay, I am coming to that you, but that someone is expressing, because of someone that speech was expressing in waking and dream and not expressing in the deep sleep. So you know speech as something other. So understand that alone as Brahman, because of which the speech is. Speech can never come to know it. And similarly, the next 2-3 verses are there. They say, Yan manasa na manute yena rurmano matam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidum upasate. what one cannot feel with the mind. So Brahman is that which one cannot feel with the mind, but that because of which the mind is. Understand that to be Brahman. Similarly, then na chakshusha na pashyati ye na chakshu gangshi pashyati tadeva brahma tvam viddhi nedam yadidum upasate. That Brahman which cannot be seen by the eyes, but by which the eyes are able to see. Understand that to be Brahman, and not that which the people worship here. Everywhere it is saying na idam yadidam upasate. Upasana means when we go to temple, when we see the altar, every house has an altar. We go to churches, temples, and we have concocted a particular form. It is helpful, no doubt. Understand the level from which this Upanishad is coming. We'll talk about the reality. There is unconditioned reality and there is conditioned reality. So we are here talking about unconditioned, limitless reality. That is Brahman. We are not talking about conditioned reality. That will come towards the end. So we are talking about the bestest student. He doesn't need support of anything. He has sorted all that out and come. And therefore, here when he says that na idam yadidam upasate, that and not this which people do worship here, which means in general people go everywhere in temples, houses, they light a lamp. Sometimes just the lamp is taken to be the divine, sometimes the sun is taken to be divine, moon is taken to be divine, your Grama Devata is taken to be divine, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh is taken to be divine, and whatever your mind wants to have a relationship with, that is taken to be divine. But that which is really the crux, the source, the essence of even all those divine forms, that nobody is falling in love with. So teacher is giving a word of caution. Yat shrotrena shrunoti yena shrotramidam shrutam tadeva brahma tvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. Which cannot be heard by the ear, but that because of which the ear is able to hear. Understand that to be Brahman, and not what people worship here. Yat pranena praniti yena prana praniyate tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. That which one breathes is not with his breath, but by which the breathing is possible. Breath is able to go in and is able to come out. It's not that someone is sitting there pushing the breath out and then sucking the breath in. Nothing like that. But there is someone. What is it? In whose presence this activity of breathing is going on, activity of seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting, thinking, ideating, conceptualizing, waking, dreaming, sleeping, meditating. Who is that? In whose presence all these activities are going on? He is not in the temple. He is expressing in the temple or the churches as the conditioned one. But here we are talking about the bestest of students. Uttam Adhikari. Then with that concluded the first chapter. Now when the student heard this, what did he hear? That Atma, this consciousness, this Brahman is other than known and the unknown. That it is So if it is other than the known and the unknown, it is the unknowable. So my mind cannot come to know, my intellect cannot come to know, my senses cannot come to know. Then is it possible to come to know? Yes, 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 yes. Don't get into that negative thinking that will I be able to come to know? No. Now become subjective. And these last 3 4 verses that we did, that which each faculty cannot come to know, but because of which that particular faculty is able to, eye is able to see, that is Brahman, ears are able to hear, that is Brahman, that because of which the mind is able to think, that is Brahman, that because of which the breath comes in and out, that is Brahman. Yes, there is one problem, that you cannot come to know. If all these conclusions are here, mind cannot know it, the senses cannot know it, the intellect cannot know it, the breath cannot know it. Does it mean that it is not there? Does it mean that it is not there? No, 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 no. It is there. It is there. Don't you know? Now, as long as you are searching for an experience of the reality through your senses and through your mind and intellect, you will reach a dead end. But that is the only faculty we have. What to do now? That is the only faculty we have. So we have to utilize this faculty in such a manner that we have, see, I give you example many times, and I have given this many times. You have to use the faculty of your mind, you have to use the faculty of your senses to think about the unthinkable. I'll give you an example. Sleep is an unthinkable object. It is emptiness. Emptiness cannot be thought. And yet, and how do you think of emptiness? You think of emptiness by the word sleep. And you keep thinking of sleep, sleep, sleep. I'm sleeping, I'm sleeping, I'm going to sleep, I'm about to sleep, gone. So you used your mind to think that which is not. Sleep is emptiness, void, that which doesn't exist. Yet you thought about it and surrendered to it. So while we have these faculties, be smart, be intelligent, Uttam Adhikari, the bestest of students, he will this is Gyan Marg. He will use his thoughts to think of that unknowable. But what has he has done? Okay, you can. We are not talking with conditionings. He is taking just one word. What is that? Brahman. And sleep comes and goes. But now here it is told that every object is before you come to know an object, it is unknown to you. And after knowing, only you come to know it. Every object before knowing is unknown to you. Before I met Martha, I didn't know who Martha is. I didn't even know a name existed like that. Or Bodh, I never know. Bodh करके नाम होता है. That there is a person called Bodh. No, but now I know. So now the moment I get an SMS, I don't have to see the face. Pop, it comes in front of my eyes. But does any face pop in front of you when the word Atma comes? So I can objectify Martha, I can objectify Bodh, I can objectify laptop, I can objectify the world, I can objectify the waking, dream, deep sleep. But is this consciousness an objectifiable, knowable object? No, it is unobjectifiable. This reality which is inspiring all the senses and the mind, it is unobjectifiable. And understand, whatever you objectify, you know it by way of thought. So I know both only because there is a thought called both. I know laptop because there is only a thought of laptop. I know a book because I have a thought called book in my mind. Kenopanishad, I got a thought called Kenopanishad. That which I don't know, I cannot have a thought about. Think. So, if you have come to this conclusion, so because we have got used to this system of associating a name with an object or experience, is it that Atma is a word and I must have a corresponding object to it? This is the next frontier which we need to cross in our mind. So mind is continuously being bombarded, brought about. The teacher has told, I have told you, it is the Atma, it is the consciousness, but that is your problem, how you think about it. I can only tell you what my teacher told me, what I studied, that it is the inspirer of the senses, it is that because of which the eye sees, the ear hears, the mind thinks. But the mind and the senses, they cannot come to know it. Now, if the student is looking for this answer out there in the world, he will never find the answer. He can never find the answer. He has to be subjective in approach, not objective in approach, subjective in approach. And therefore, he's seeing, the teacher must have seen the big eyes of the student drinking in the explanation which or the answer which the teacher had given to his question. And with every verse, how many verses we did in the first chapter? 8. With every verse out of that 7 verses, in 7 verses he was filled with thrill. His eyes are glowing. He's absorbing he's hanging on to every word of the teacher. And teacher is seeing that he's getting ecstatic, he's getting emotional, he's getting thrilled. His mind is thrilled. And suddenly he drops another bomb. And what is that bomb? With that bomb begins the second chapter. Yadi manyase suvedeti dabhramevapi nunam tvam vetta brahmano rupam yadasya tvam yadasya deveshwadhanu mimangsyameva te manye viditam. Some tune, I have forgotten the tune. So here he says, the teacher says that because his eyes were widening, smile was increasing, body was sitting erect, hanging on to every word without blinking. He probably saw that the student is even not breathing anymore because he is hanging. I am there. He's trying to work it out. His mind is absolutely available to what the teacher is saying, and his mind is scanning. Where is this? He's trying to search it within. And it clicks also. Yeah, he is absolutely convinced. Knowing that the student may fall into that trap of conviction, he immediately says that if you think you know it well, the student has not said anything. The teacher is saying, if you think that you know it well, it is then you have not known anything. All you have known is a little bit only, that's all. Because this Brahman, this reality is the essence of the Devas also. Devas also cannot come to know him. So if you think that I have known, I have come to know it, then you are going the wrong way, because what the teacher could perceive in the student was a precipitation of intellectual conviction which was doubt free. With regards to what the teacher told in the first chapter as answer, the student was absolutely available. The only problem was with the student, he was still objective in his approach. And who is objective in approach? The intellect is objective in approach. It will try to make it into a concept. Meditation is also concept. Samadhi is also concept. But Atma, the pure consciousness, which is our essence, that is not a concept. Waking, dream, deep sleep is a concept. The five senses and the mind and the intellect, all this is concept of the intellect. But Atma is not a concept. But when the intellect thinks of the Atma as I, when the intellect thinks of that unknowable, which is its essence, because of which the intellect is functioning, it calls it Atma, it calls it Brahman, then it is then it is a thought in the mind of the in the intellect. And if it is not subjective approach, then it remains as a concept. So here the teacher is trying to stop the student from making the concept, intellectual concept understanding of the word Brahman, of the reality Brahman. It has to be known subjectively. It has to be known as I, without a thought. So if you think that you and say that I have come to understand it, I know it very well, then you have not come to know. Therefore, I think you need to reassess your approach. You need to be subjective and not objective in your approach. And the student was listening very intently to this word of caution presented by the teacher, that he doesn't go into an imaginary, a reverie within his mind, thinking that I have come to know, and this is what, and when you think that you have come to know, you go into samadhi. Samadhi is at the level of intellect. Samadhi is not realization. All that has happened is, what is intellect? Intellect is where the I thought appears. What is mind? Where all other thoughts are appearing. And I is interacting. I is the subject. And all objects are in the mind. And I keeps creating a relationship with every object. Like I am right now, how many 10, 12 verses, 10 verses have happened. I started with the first verse, I made a relationship with it, I explained, then second, then third, then fourth, then fifth. So every verse is coming and going. I am creating a relationship and then I am communicating it. So is this Atma the one who is communicating? No, mouth is communicating, the words are communicating. So who is this Atma? What is that consciousness? What is that Brahman? Because of reality, because of which the speech is able to communicate. Is it only in the tongue? Is the inspiration coming from mind for the tongue to speak? Is the inspiration coming from the intellect for the tongue to speak? Where is it coming from? Something to ponder. And yes, if you go step by step, the inspiration to speak, hear, touch, feel, taste is coming from the mind. The inspiration in the mind is coming from the intellect. Where is the intellect getting inspired from? Then the student sat down. I remember the story. He went and sat in a corner and contemplated to what the teacher had told, because he was getting excited, he was getting thrilled. He calmed himself down, slowed down his breath even more, stopped the mind from wavering and objectifying, and came to be. And the moment he came to be, the moment it clicked, it's only a click. It's only a click. Just as 10 people crossing a river reach the other side, and they start counting. Oh, let's see if someone has not, everyone has come, and they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Every one of them counts 9 only. They say, oh, I think one is missing, and they lose hope that someone has, has gone missing and drowned in the river, and they are crying there. Nobody tried to work out who is the 10th person who is missing, but they are crying and giving solace to each other. Or yaar, we should have been more careful, and this and that. And someone was passing by, he saw these crying people. He said, why are you crying? Yaar, we were 10 of us and now we are only 9. I don't know where the 10th person, how do we find? He looked at just from far away, he looked, they are all 10 only. He says, you are already 10, nobody is missing. He says, how? He says, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, 9 only. He says, Buddhu, stupid fellow, count yourself the 10th one. So, in that, it's a gross example, because his attention was only outside, so he counted 9, but he forgot himself. Similarly, our attention is on the world, our attention is on the senses, our attention is on the mind, our attention is on the intellect, our attention is on the thoughts, concepts, ideas, but our attention is we never accept ourselves as we are. The pure consciousness. See? And in this manner, the student who sat down, he says, and suddenly he comes out roaring from his meditation. And what does he say? I do not think that I know it well. Naham manye, na aham manye suvedeti, no na vedeti vedacha. But not that I do not know. Huh? I do not think that I know it well, because he is now counteracting the teacher's words. You can say it's only play of words. Yes, it can be a play of words if it is not backed by the subjective experience. I do not think that I know it well, but not that I do not know. So it is a knowable also, and it is an unknowable also. I don't know how to speak about it, but I know it. And I know too. And then he adds something else. Yo nastad veda tad veda, no na vedeti vedacha. Anyone among, there are other students also and teacher also. In front of teacher he is making this declaration, and he says, amongst us, whoever comprehends it both as not known and as the known, he alone comprehends it. The one who knows it as not known and known, he alone knows it. Now these words are like spark. If you are ready, bang, there will be a conflagration. all your identity will be burnt to ashes right here and now. And he continues, he doesn't stop there. He says, Yasya matam tasya matam matam yasya navedasaha avijnatam vijanatam vijnatam avijanatam. He who understands it, comprehends it not. So the one who has come to this conviction that I know it, then he has not known anything. Hmm? It is the avijnatam vijanatam, vijnatam avijanatam. See these two words, avijnatam avijnatam vijanatam and vijnatam avijanatam. So exactly mirror words. And what are they? Excuse me. It is the unknown, and yet it is known. Simple as that. So if you think you have comprehended, you have known it, you have not comprehended. If you think that you have not comprehended, then you have known it. To the ignorant person, the knowledge is always known. Known is always at the level of thoughts. So, ignorant people, they always use words. We are ignorant, only speaking. Yesterday, one satsang I told, Anandamayi Ma was there in India in 70s or 80s. She left her body. 80s, 85, I think. And she used to say, देखो, सुनो, बोलो मत. Meaning, look, listen, but don't speak. Meaning, remain in silence. What is this silence? This silence is not against, this atmic silence is not against speaking or not speaking. We have to be, just as this Atma, this pure consciousness, is beyond the known and the unknown. It's beyond the knowable and the unknowable. It is knowable also, and it is so when we say it is knowable as the subject itself, as the Atma. It is unknowable. But if you consider yourself to be the mind and intellect, and you use the thoughts to know it, you use your senses, faculties to know it, it is unknowable. But it is alone functioning. It is the one who is inspiring those faculties also. So in this manner, the teacher says here that avijnatam vijanatam, vijnatam avijanatam. He who thinks he has understood, he has not known it. And he who has not known it, alone has understood. The same way Bhagavad Gita says, though a yogi, when everyone is sleeping, the yogi is awake. When everyone is awake, the yogi is sleeping. You work it out. Huh? Now, having said that, he makes another statement. What is that? Pratibodha viditam matam amrutatvam hi vindate atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate mrutam. Indeed, he attains immortality. Amritatvam hi vindate. Amritatvam is immortality. He alone attains immortality who intuits it. What is intuition? We know intuition only with regards to the world. As your mind, faculties become integrated, become focused. From manyness, you come to oneness. And what is that oneness? You are thinking of that not just as a concept, not just as an idea. You are subjectively thinking कि my senses, my mind, my breath is functioning right now. What is inspiring it? What is inspiring it right now? My hand is going like this. What is making the hand go like that? What is making the eyes see? What is making the ears hear? And you are approaching the whole topic within this faculty, within these faculties, and you are bringing about a disposition to catch or to bring about an environment so as to that pure consciousness, that reality, that Atma to reveal itself. And revelation is not that I opened the door and someone revealed. No, 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 no. It is not. Again, revelation is, no, the sun came up and it revealed in the morning. No, no, not that type of revelation. Because it is not a revelation of something else other than you. You are the one. This we have to come to the conclusion. Who intuits it, and through every modification of mind, and here it said pratibodha viditam matam. Here we talked so much in detail there at that time. And what is that? Can you stop your eyes from seeing? Can you stop your mind from thinking? Can you stop your intellect from saying I? Can you stop your legs from walking? Can you stop your stomach from being hungry or thirsty? Can you stop the tongue from speaking? Can you stop yourself? I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to dream. I'm not going to wake up. Arre? You have got no choice. It is going to happen. Whether you like it or not, thoughts will come, emotions will come, breathing will come and go. Senses will see or not see. This is going on incessantly. Then what is pratibodha viditam matam? We can, for some time, by way of yoga, etc., we can bring about a cessation. We can silence the speech. We can silence the senses. You can put your, with two fingers you catch the, what is that? With the thumb you close the ears. With this, close the eyes. With this, the second finger, you close the nose. And with the last two, you can close all the five senses. But how long? After some time, the fingers will start aching. You can't even hold a simple handkerchief for half an hour. After some time, it's so light. Just like this, I keep it on my hand. But after some time, I can start feeling the weight of it. And here we are in this funny position called Brahmari. And then you close all this and then you say or you listen to the sound of unuttered sound of Om which is going on in your mind, or you chant and let that vibration. But all that is, how long can you do that? After some time you'll get exhausted. So we need to find a way. Pratibodha viditam matam. Here, if we do this, our attention is on the body. Oh, I have to close my eyes, I have to close my ears, I have to close my nose, I have to close my mouth. It is frustrating because you cannot live, you cannot go around walking like that. You cannot go into shopping center like that. You cannot communicate anything like that. It's not normal. It's abnormal. So is there a way? When we have understood the previous verses, the next, this verse, fourth verse saying pratibodha viditam matam, meaning come to know that consciousness is the inspirer of every activity, of every thought. Matam here is mind, and mind means flow of thought. With every thought, you know, every thought is coming and every thought is going. Every thought is coming and every thought is going. I will add here which they have not given. You can, if that is you're finding it too well, too difficult, because you have not prepared yourself well, watch the breath. There is some breath is going in, coming out, going in, coming out. It's happening automatically. You just withdraw from everything and just sit down and watch the breath going in and coming out. Suddenly you will find yourself as yourself. That's the Atman, the witness, the inspirer, the pure consciousness. So know it to be the one who is behind every thought, the one who is inspiring every thought. And it is not just behind every thought. It is what is mind? We told you last time. What is the mind? Mind is consciousness with thoughts is called mind. Mind without thoughts is consciousness. But because on the consciousness thoughts are there, has consciousness vanished? So consciousness with reference to thoughts is called mind. Consciousness with reference to concepts, ideas, imaginations is called intellect. Just as a woman with reference to a man, husband is called a wife. With reference to parents is called a daughter. So does it mean the woman has vanished? Woman is still there. Woman is pervading fully, not only a part of it, fully, through the wife, through the mother, through the daughter. But woman is independent of those roles, but those roles can. So who is the inspirer of those roles? The woman. Those roles cannot express without the woman, but woman can express without those roles. Understand what I am saying? Exactly the same way, this pure consciousness, you can catch it in and through the thoughts which are coming and going. Now be available even right now. What is that? Thoughts are coming and going. The one who is observing the thought, is he coming and going? The I thought is also coming and going. I am speaking. The I also came and went. Am also came and went. Speaking is also came and went. And so many words I have spoken already. But did I come and go? Who is this who did not go? Who is this who is always? That is the pure consciousness. That is the reality. And that is not conditioned by the five sheaths. That is not conditioned by space-time objectivity, because all these are only concepts of the mind. That is not conditioned by waking, dream, deep sleep. That is not conditioned by subject and object. That is not conditioned by the instruments. And in this way, Atmana vindate viryam, and the more you contemplate on this Atman, which is in and through every thought, pratibodha viditam matam. That is your field. That is your field where you catch it with every thought, in and through. And the more you think, Atmana vindate viryam, more strength, more availability, more what you call one. The one who contemplates in this manner as pratibodh viditam matam, he gains more and more strength and eventually attains immortality. Vidya viryam vidyata vindate amrutam. And in this way, the fourth verse was there. And then the last verse in this second chapter, iha ched vedidatha satyamasti न चेद इहा वेदीन महति विनष्टिः भूतेषु भूतेषु विचित्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्माद् लोकाद् अमृता भवन्ति. इह चेद वे चेद वेदीथ satyamasti. If one comes to know that Brahman here in this world right now, then that is the end of vinashti, mahati vinashtihi. Then it is the end of all agitations, it is the end of all problems, it is the end of all afflictions, it is the end of all sins. When? Here, now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, not after the class. Here and now. Because Atman, this pure consciousness can only be known in the now. Past also is thoughts, future is also thoughts, ideas, imaginations. They also come and go. We are not after something that which comes and goes. We want to know that which is always, which is inspiring all this. Even the past thoughts are inspired by this. Even the future thoughts are inspired by this. In general rule, pratibodha viditam matam, in and through every thought, this consciousness alone can be it alone is functioning, and it can be caught behind, in and through every thought alone. But for that you have to slow down a bit initially, and for that we have seen in our Amrita Anubhav, Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti Para, gross speech, subtle speech, causal speech, and transcendental speech. And in this manner, and if one has not come to know what was it? Mahati vinashtihi, and having destroyed, by knowing the Atman, by knowing this pure consciousness, which is the eye of the eye, which is the ear of the ear, which is the mind of the mind, which is the breath of the breath, pranas of the prana. And where did you catch it? Pratibodha viditam matam. You caught it in and through every thought. And having caught it and being it every moment, bhuteshu bhuteshu vichitya dhira, such a wise man keeps moving around in this world. In fact, he is moving around in himself alone, because his vision having come to be established in himself as himself. Now when he opens his eyes, when his mind becomes activated again and he looks around, he sees only himself. He doesn't see the differences. Yes, eyes will see the differences. Nose will smell the differences. Ears will hear the different words. But his disposition is, all this is I alone. And how does he know it? Without a thought. And if he has to use the thoughts, what type of thoughts will he use? He will use the thoughts like given in this Upanishad. Just like that student said, I know it, and it's not that I don't know it. Because you cannot talk about, because it doesn't have a form. It is not the pure consciousness that you are, that is what you are. It is not a concept. It doesn't have any contours. Body has contours. Thought has contours of subject object. But that which is invigorating all this, it doesn't have any contours. It is limitless. It is conditionless. It is infinite. It is unborn, eternal. And such a person, such a wise person, he moves around in this world, seeing, directly experiencing, not like I am experiencing you, or you are experiencing me, or you are experiencing the words on the books, on the book, on the Upanishad text. Then it's an experienceless experience. His senses may be seeing the differences, but he is seeing the one Atma, the one consciousness expressing through the entire world, entire creation. Just like you see the one woman expressing through the mother, daughter, sister, just like you know the space is the one space which is pervading all the countries, just as you know it is one gold which is pervading all the ornaments, it is the one water which is pervading all the oceans and waves. Similarly, this pure consciousness is pervading the entire objectivity which is being perceived by the senses, but his attention, the wise man's attention, is on the oneness, and that one is one without a second. You feel there is one life and there is another life there and another life there. The life in my husband is different, my life in my children is different, the life in my parents are different. No, it is the one consciousness appearing as many, just as it is one water which is appearing as many, just as it is one space which is appearing as different houses, it is one house space which is appearing as different rooms, because our attention is on the boundaries. Just as it is one you who is expressing through all the limbs. Go subtler. It is one you who is expressing through all the thoughts. The whole world is only known to you by thoughts, and you are pervading the thoughts. Can the wave come outside the water? Can the wave come outside the water? Not possible. Can the thought appear outside consciousness? Not possible. This has to be intuited. Grace, Prabhu, Lord's grace. And in this manner, with that we concluded that chapter, and then the story was shown and that story was told, and in that story how the Indra, Agni, the gods, they had defeated the asuras, and they were bloating with their mithya abhiman, false arrogance, ego, and then there, while they were boasting, that one reality came as a yaksha, and that yaksha then the fire god went there. He could not burn the blade of grass that was presented. The wind went, it could not blow it. And then Indra went, and Indra had this unique disposition that he had an inkling, but before he could perceive it through, because he's smarter, he is the lord of the all the gods, demigods. So he sees it, but that very moment the yaksha vanishes. So there it was told that the quality of humility is necessary, and the necessity of a guru is there, because it seems to be an unknowable. What is that which is inspiring the speech, the mind, the breath, the etc.? That was the question. And now Indra is having the same question. What was that? I saw something, but I can't see anything. But there was certainly someone there. And when he is, but he is committed. He doesn't go there with arrogance. He is waiting. He is patient. He is focused. He is not allowing his mind to waver in doubts. And because of all these qualities, then the Uma, the goddess, appears. She is the guru, and she appears and gives him the answer that what you are thinking, that there is someone. Yes, it was Brahman. It is that reality. It is that infinite pure consciousness. And these are the and therefore we must also cultivate ourselves with all these qualities. And there she told him that all glories belong to the Brahman alone, and that Brahman, that reality alone, is functioning through you. It is functioning through the fire god. It is functioning through the air. In fact, it is functioning through every macro and micro. Everything is pervaded by it alone, and everything belongs to Brahman, and Brahman supports everything, expresses through everything, and yet is independent without any loss or gain. And this self-knowledge, this Atmic knowledge, makes a person great in this world. And therefore this story, which was a depiction of the thought that was presented in the first and second chapters, the principles that were expressed, becomes a useful contemplative contemplation. Contemplation means upasana. You can keep thinking about it and then relate to the verses in this manner. If we can't understand what they are telling there, at least through the story, Indra was there, let me think like that. If you keep thinking like Indra, you will get to the point where that student was. Then began the fourth chapter, quickly because time is almost over. And the fourth chapter was about the sadhanas. Now remember, till the first and the second chapter were for the students who is the best test. बोलते हैं ना, good, better, best. So best is the Uttam Adhikari. That was the Gyan Marg. He just needed words and it clicked. He heard the words of the teacher. He did Shravanam. He did listening to the words of the teacher, because he had a question. Teacher answered. He heard, and that was enough, because he was well prepared. He was having the Vivek, Vairagya, etc., etc. His faculties were in control. He was Vairagya, meaning he was not attached to anything, and therefore had approached the teacher. He had sorted all that out. Therefore, Uttam, the best student. But sir, we are not. After the lecture, we are going to say, well, what is for the dinner now? Or I should have it's so cold, I want a cup of tea now, and this, all that. Is there no way to have a relationship? So for a Madhyam Adhikari, the middle, better. Good, better, best. So we are talking about better now. Medium one. Not the best one, but the better one. For him, then the examples were given in the fourth chapter. That was the lightning upasana. Just as lightning comes and goes, know that Brahman is like that. He comes, reveals himself and goes away. And that's what was experienced by the, in the story, the fire god and the wind god. They both experienced him, but they didn't have the perseverance and patience of their boss Indra. Then another example was given was winking upasana, nimisha. So just just as quickly, just as the world, you close your eyes and open your eyes, in that one moment the world comes and disappears. Exactly the same way the yaksha came and went away, exactly the same way. The third example that was taken was thought upasana. Thoughts also come and go very quickly. Lightning comes and goes very quickly, blinking takes place very quickly, thought also comes and goes very quickly. So slowly from outside the lightning to winking, the at the sensory level, to thought at the mental level, at the subtle level. And then it was told the fourth upasana or practice for this medium student was given was tadvana upasana, meaning the contemplation on the Lord with qualities. And this way meditation on Brahman as lightning, as winking, as thought, as the Lord, all this is helpful to make our mind focused, single pointed, concentrated, expansive, uh, 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 and uh, and free of the worldly clutches, entanglements. And then such a mind then becomes available to something higher. And then what, sir, this is also very difficult for us. We don't fall into the category of the best and the better. We are, what is there good? No, there is no good, there is only stupid. Okay, what is for the stupid? Stupid is the karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Where it was told, speak the truth, control your senses, do the tapas, follow the austerity, read the Vedas, read the Vedangas, and whoever follows karma yoga, upasana, jnana yoga attains moksha. So even if you start from the basic minimum, which is karma yoga is, but do it correctly. Don't make karma yoga, I am doing my duty, I am taking care of my children. How old are your children? 60 years old. 60-year-old children, and you are still taking care of them? Then there is no hope for you. Then what is karma yoga? Wherever life has placed us, performing our action with inspiration, with joy, but expecting nothing in return. Then doing the tapasya, controlling your senses, thinking of the Lord, doing these four upasanas, all of them with joy, but wanting no result as a fruit. Then you are purifying. And eventually karma yoga leads to upasana. Upasana means upa asana, upanishad, sitting near the truth, sitting near the guru, sitting near the greatness, sitting near the scriptures, whichever way you put it, Upanishad. So upasana is also coming, sitting near. Asana, sitting near. Asana is sitting. Sitting near what? Sitting near the lightning, sitting near the winking, sitting near the thought, sitting near the Lord, and remaining focused with it, just like for 1.5 hours you are sitting with the Upanishad. And in this manner, eventually, so karma yoga, purification, upasana, focusing, single pointedness, concentration, which eventually leads to jnana yoga, which is abidance, or eventually it is, you come to the Upanishads, which are nothing but words, and you are thinking, contemplating while you are listening, but you are intuiting that what is being talked about is not other than the real me, is not other than the pure consciousness, is not other than the Atman. That Atman I am. And in this way the Upanishad concludes, and hopefully I have done justice to the Upanishad in this 1.5 hour, but felt that I must recap it in one go, so that we have a picture in front of our eyes of the complete flow, because we did it over so many classes, and it's every week one class. But here, now, in one class, in one satsang, the entire scheme has been presented to our mind, and hopefully it abides in the vision that is presented to it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Just sit quietly for a moment.